Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we're going to be doing this super simple winter cardinal themed tumbler. As always, I'll make sure to put everything that I use today down in the description box below so that way you guys can shop those items if you would like to. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. Now, I am starting out on a 20-ounce skinny tumbler that I purchased through the Stainless Depot, but you can obviously use any style and type and brand tumbler you already have on hand to make this project. I went ahead and I already prepped my tumbler and I painted it white. I actually used acrylic white paint for my base because in these cold winter months, I know it's getting a little bit harder to use spray paint and it's a little bit harder to find spray paints at the store. So there's nothing wrong with using just regular old paint to get that base coat on. I am using the epoxy method to apply my glitter today, but if you don't like using epoxy to apply your glitter, go ahead and use your paints while they're still wet, or you can go ahead and use your Mod Podge, however you guys like to apply your glitter. But I'm just using an extremely small amount of epoxy on my tumbler so that way I can put this glitter on. I'm going to go ahead and apply the entire tumbler in this beautiful white glitter. This is called Agenda. You can purchase that at my glitter shop, socglitters.com, but it's completely fine to use whatever white glitter you already have on hand for this project. I'm going to go ahead and let that cure. I'm going to put 2 coats of epoxy over top of my raw glitter so that way I have a nice smooth surface to be able to apply our decals on. Now, after I let my 2 coats of epoxy cure, I am ready to start applying those decals. The first thing I want to do is I want to measure my tumbler. I want to measure around, and I also want to measure the height. So I want to measure the width and the height of the tumbler. The reason why I'm not going to give precise measurements is because yours might be a little bit different, especially after adding a couple coats of epoxy. Mine might be a little bit thicker than yours, so that's why you always want to go ahead and double check these measurements before you start getting your vinyl cut out. Now, after I did my measurements, I went ahead and I actually made it just a little bit smaller than what the actual measurements were. So that was 8, and I actually went just a little bit below so that way it wasn't completely over the top, because there's nothing worse than trying to sand off your top and accidentally sand your vinyls and stuff like that. So make sure you leave a little bit of wiggle room for you to be able to sand and all that at the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and unlock my birch trees. I'm going to put the measurements in that I need them to be, and I'm going to go ahead and cut those out in a basic white vinyl. Now, I know I already measured and have it cut out and everything, but I always take my decals when I'm doing a wrap like this just to double check that everything's going to fit okay. So, because like I said, there's nothing worse than wrapping it up and it doesn't fit the way you want it to. So to go ahead and triple check if you need to. So I went ahead and I took my decal off and I have it on its transfer tape still, and I flipped it over and I'm going to place it back down on my mat because I am using a straight-sided skinny tumbler. I'm just going to take my tumbler and roll it right across my decal. It is so easy. I absolutely love doing it this way. I know you guys have seen me do this before. So I'm just going to take my tumbler, I'm going to line it up really good, and I'm just going to roll it across. Now, if you're using a curvy style tumbler and you don't want to fully do each one individually, even though there's not that many, all you have to do is make some slits right up in between the trees, put the top on, and then just lay your trees down nice and straight across those curves on those curvy tumblers. Now, because I'm going to be using a metallic type vinyl for some of my decals that I'm going to put on after this, I'm going to go ahead and put just a very thin coat of epoxy over top of my birch trees here, just so that way the lines from the birch trees don't interfere with those metallic vinyls, because I know you guys know that those metallic, there we go, vinyls show any little inconsistencies in your epoxy. So make sure you have a very smooth surface for this next part. And speaking of the next step, let's go ahead and take a look at how I finished up those decals. I searched everywhere for cardinals that I thought would go really well with my birch trees, and I was so excited when I finally found these cardinals. They are so beautiful, and I believe they're actually supposed to be used for like painting signs and stuff, but they work fabulous for this tumbler. So all I did was I'm going to go ahead and remove all the branches out from under the feet because I didn't need those because I got my trees already. I'm going to go ahead and lower down the size of all of them. I just made the largest ones at the top about an inch. That worked for me. I just lined them up with my trees just to make sure that I liked it. I'm going to go ahead and change everything black so that way I can cut everything out on the same board. I am going to be using like this metallic red. I'm also going to be using an orange for the beak and a black for its face. Now for all my new tumbler makers out there, the reason why I changed it all black and wanted it on one board is just easier for me that way. But if you didn't know that was possible, here you go. All I do is take any little parts that need to be a specific color, group them all together, make sure I put those coordinating vinyls on my mat, and go ahead and start to get it cut out. Now where the magic happens and everything finally starts to come together. I let my tumbler cure overnight so that way I have a nice smooth surface for this particular vinyl right here. This is like a metallic red vinyl that I'm using for the Cardinals. It almost looks like satin under the epoxy. It's a very beautiful vinyl. Now I'm just going to take each little piece and I'm actually going to layer it right on my tumbler. You know, there's no right or wrong when it comes to making art, so however you guys want to do it, completely do it that way. Now, as I layer my birds on, I didn't quite know where I wanted to go in the direction as far as the quote that I wanted to put on my tumbler, but I know I wanted to put on a quote. Now, this could go lots of different ways for anybody. I kind of went more of the memorial way, memorial type tumbler way. But obviously, you don't have to do it that way. This could just be a very basic, beautiful Christmas tumbler or winter themed tumbler. But my thought was, if it was a memorial type tumbler, each bird could possibly represent a loved one that has passed. But wherever your imagination takes you, I know you guys got this. Okay, now that all my little birds are applied, I'm just going to finish it up by applying his face and applying his beak, and then we'll continue on with our quote. And I do want to mention before we move on further that I find it best kind of pushing out any bubbles under these metallic vinyls with the transfer tape over top. It seems to make it slip much easier for those little air bubbles to completely pop out the bottom. But if you're having an issue, if you can make an extremely small hole that you can just take your nail and kind of press the air out, you don't want to be able to see those bubbles or the hole that you made because metallic vinyl is very unforgiving. So just be as careful as you possibly can when you're applying these vinyls. All right. Everything is all completely applied, and I found a nice spot right here that I want to apply my quote. So I'm going to show you guys how I made my quote as well. Now all I did was just use two different type of fonts. The first one is right off the Cricut Design Space that I'm typing up right now. This is called BF Christmas Cards. And the second one I actually got off of Creative Fabrica. I actually have their monthly subscription plan, and so I can pretty much upload any type of fonts I want at any time as long as I pay the monthly fee. But I'll make sure to put this all down in the description box below, again, so that way you guys can use it or check out stuff if you would like to. But I did try doing everything in just one font and I didn't really like it, so I wanted to go ahead and switch it up and do the two different fonts, but that's just me. So the rest of this is just up to you. It's all up to what kind of aesthetic you're going after whenever you do your decals. I made the Cardinals and the Angels a little bit bigger since they're a separate font, and because the other font that I used was more of a tight-knit font, it's more closer together, I went ahead and made that just a little bit smaller, and I thought it went pretty well together. But it is extremely easy to go ahead and make up your own decals if you can. And I did go ahead and cut out an offset for this, but I really didn't know if I wanted to use it. But if you do want an offset, I like mine kind of tighter to the font, so I did like a 0.25, and I was actually going to do it in the same white that I did my trees in, but you could do it in black to kind of go with the birds on the tumbler. Again, wherever your imagination takes you. But I'm quite happy that I didn't apply the offset. I really like being able to see the trees and everything underneath. Now, before I apply my two last finishing coats of epoxy, I did go ahead and spray down my tumbler with a little bit of semi-gloss clear just to make sure that that epoxy doesn't wick away off of my metallic vinyls. And right into my epoxy, I just added just a little bit of Suncatcher Silver. I just thought it added just a little bit more extra detail, making it look more like a winter scene. After I let that cure, it is ready to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.